Hey, good morning, and welcome back to the online experience for the Collective Church. Hope you're doing incredible. Hope you have had a great Sunday, a great weekend, a great week. So this is week 2 of our prayer series. Last week we started with prayers of praise, and as I got ready for this week, I realized that I've really gone out of order. I should have done this week first, but this week is really not fun, and so I think I just didn't want to jump right into it because today we're going to be talking about prayers of lament. And, there's an entire book of the Bible written about it, Lamentations. There's different places in, like a third of the Psalms are laments. And then, we've got them all over Scripture as well. There's even things in the New Testament, like with Jesus in the garden and things like that. But today we're going to look at Psalm 13. And last week we looked at Psalm 8 as a prayer of praise and just kind of look practically at what it means. And then today we're going to look at prayers of lament. Now, basically it's prayers that you and God have some things that y'all need to talk through and that you need to bring to him because of invisible hurt, really. That invisible hurt could have been caused by physical hurt or mental, emotional, or spiritual hurt, but it's really because we are bringing pain that we have to him. Now, when I think about pain, I think about first physical. I think about myself when I was 7 and I was climbing a tree in my sister's backyard, and my dad said, "Okay, don't jump. I'm gonna go in," and he had to go get something. And then, but I really wanted to get down, so what did I do? I jumped and I broke my wrist. I broke my wrist and then hurt the other wrist. So at both times, like both wrists were like messed up. And I also remember when I was playing football one time, I ran in the door, and our screen door to our house has this thing where it goes like it would open and go the hydraulic, and then it would give you a little bit of time, and then it go and then slam. So I don't think that's the way it was supposed to be. And so I went in and was talking or doing something, standing in the door, and it did and then when it slammed back on my foot and caught my, around my heel between there and the Achilles, and it cut me pretty deep, but I didn't realize it, so I went and put a Band-Aid on. Didn't really realize how bad it was. Went back and played some more football, came back and said, "Mom, my foot hurts pretty bad." And she looked at it and she was like, "What have you done? I can see the bone." And so she takes me. Well, what's funny is when they ended up working on it, she almost passed out, so the nurses were attending to her at the same time. I was like, oh my gosh. So but I remember how much that hurt. I remember like letting everyone know it hurt. I there was a time when I was in middle school, junior high, it's like 8th or 9th grade, when I was ironing something. I don't know why I was ironing, but I was ironing something, and I was like, I wonder if I could standing broad jump over this thing. So I did it. First time, made it. I was like, let's go. And so I was like, let's do that again. So I do it again. I dragged my foot, and the ironing board flipped upside down. And the part that, that when you push the ironing board in, it's the little pin that goes up and down that lets the legs get longer or shorter. That popped out and cut me on my leg. I have a 10-inch scar. I had to go to the doctor, lied to them, did not tell them that I was broad jumping an ironing board. Again, it's very important for you to know that I made it the first time. But I remember all these times, literally said either ouch or that hurts or something. Like there was something that I made it known to someone about how much it hurt. I can think of, coming into the adulthood and things like that. Like it's not always ouch. Sometimes it's things that you can't say on an online experience, but it really hurts. And so there's an expression of that hurt. In this idea of lament, I want to read this concoction of a definition for you, because obviously it's a form of prayer. It is bringing hurt to God, but I want to read this to you. So a lament is what we're going to be talking about today. A lament, a form of talking to God. A spiritual, emotional, or mental, or invisible hurt that we get to turn to God. A spiritual, emotional, mental, invisible hurt that we get to turn to God. Now, basically, a lament is a cry out to God. When we physically get hurt, we usually cry something out. And by cry, I don't mean tears. I mean, we verbally make it known that, hey, that hurts, that sucked. In this idea of a lament, the very non-seminary, non-super religiously thing is like, we get to cry out, ouch, that hurts, to God. And we turn to him because that is where the connection needs to be in the invisible part. If we were to love him with our heart, soul, mind, and body, again, looking at Deuteronomy 6, looking at some of the stuff in the New Testament where Jesus even mentions that, 3 of those things are invisible. And so we get to turn the hurt that is in the invisible to him. So a lament is this cry out to God. And in looking at a ton of different resources, one of the things I saw is that a third of the Psalms are laments, just some information here, and that there are, in many laments, there are 4 parts. So I'm going to read to you Psalm 13. It's a short psalm, so don't get freaked out. It's a whopping 6 verses. Even I can read this. I'm going to read it to you, then I'm going to go back and I want to show you the 4 parts, and then I'm going to come back and read it again. But remember, a lament is a cry out to God, and then here's a little bit more. A lament is a cry out to God about chaos, brokenness, suffering, pain, vulnerability, and hurt. A lament is a cry out to God about chaos, brokenness, suffering, pain, vulnerability, and hurt. Now, there's a lot more. There is more that goes into it. We're going to look at that here. So, so here it is. Psalm 13. It says, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever?" I love how he just starts right away. Like, he's just like, what is up? How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Verses 3 and 4. Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death, lest my enemies say I have prevailed over him, lest my foes rejoice because I am shaken. Verse 5 and 6. But I have trusted in your steadfast love. Your heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. So, I told you earlier that in some of the research I was doing is that there's usually 4 parts to any lament. So there's the first part, which is turn to God. So in verse 1, he literally says in the first 5, first 5 English words is, how long, O Lord? Or I guess it's 4. How long, O Lord? So we know who he's talking to. We know who he's trying to connect with. We know who he is turned to. It is God. So turn to God is usually the first step in any lament. And then the rest of verses 1, 2, 3, and 4 is the second part. Now, some of the commentaries I was looking at called this bringing your complaint, but I want to give a different title for it. Here's the rest of verse 1 and verse 2. So we've already turned to God. How long, O Lord? And then the next part is, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? So, sorry, it's just verses 1 and 2. So, again, in some of the stuff I was saying, like the second part of a lament is bringing your complaint. I want to kind of reword that, which is a little arrogant of me, but I'm going to do it anyway, and just call that confession. You're just letting it be known. You're confessing. You're literally vomiting out. You're letting God, the one that you're trying to connect with, that you've already turned to, oh, how long, O Lord, the first part of the lament, and now you're confessing, will you forget me forever? Just, God, what's going on? Where are you? What are you doing? How long will you hide your face from me? Letting him know that you feel unseen. How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? Letting him know, listen, there is sadness and sorrowful and pain that is inside of the deepest part of who I am. And how long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Just this idea of, with David, obviously, that there was this enemy that you and I may not have to deal with. Okay, there may be a physical enemy that you and I may not be able to focus on all the time. But there's this idea of what it looks like to turn to God in that lament, where you don't have to mirror the circumstance that he was in, but learn from the obedience and learn from the truth. And so how long shall my enemy be exalted over me? That there was something that felt like it had power over him, or there was something that felt like it was leading him to feel powerless or to feel like he has an enemy. So he just confesses that. So the first one is turn to God, go to God, like work to connect to him in the invisible parts of who you are. The second one is what they call bring your complaint. Again, I want to rename it and call it confession. And then verse 3 and 4, it says, consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Light on my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemies say I have prevailed over him. Let my foes rejoice because I am shaking. The third part is to ask for help. Just to ask for help. And he's like in verse 3, consider and answer me, O Lord. Light up my eyes. Like there is something that I need to bring to you, that I need you to be. And this is kind of like what it was with praise, that I need you to be who only you can be. And then the fourth part is choose to trust. Another way to look at it was to focus on praise. But let's look at the verses 5 and 6. It says, but I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. So, choose to trust, turn to praise. But one of the things that you see in a lot of laments is that many laments end on this sudden turn to praise. It's like they've turned to God, they've confessed, they've asked for help, and then there's this sudden turn to praise at the end. And you can look back at last week, kind of like what we talked about for praise. So, when you look at these, when you look at what this was, why is David turning to God? David is turning to God because there's something that is happening in his life that he is going, I have chaos, brokenness, suffering, pain, vulnerability, and hurt. And my only step toward trust, toward connection, and relief doesn't always mean that it cures the situation, but like my ability to connect, to renew, to reset, trust, confidence, my ability to connect to God comes through this area of lament, of turning to God, the only one that can be who he needs to be, confess, hey, look, are you literally going to forgive me forever? What are you doing? Like, why can't you show up for me? Like, all these things that I think we don't want to say to God, and I think God has zero problem with you saying those things to him. You're not questioning, like, the fact that, is this... Well, no. You may even actually question, is this all worth it? But I don't think God's scared of those things. Like, I think we need to bring the absolute messiest, non-prayer language, non-churchy words to God if that is what is happening in the invisible part of us. If the prayers you are bringing God scares you to say, then that is probably a decently genuine prayer. If you wouldn't pray that prayer, potentially, okay, I know that this isn't everywhere, but if you wouldn't potentially pray the prayer that you are turning to God in front of someone else, now you may be getting at the core of the real stuff that you need to bring to him. So, the 4 steps of lament. Looking at Psalm 13, we're only looking at Psalm 13, but I think if you can look at all the laments, and you can look at a trust to God, you can look at a confession, an ask for help, and then this sudden turn to praise, or this place where there's trust that wants to be extended to God. This choosing of that trust. So, I'm going to read it to you again. I want to see if you can hear those 4 parts. The turning to God, the confession, the asking for help, and then the sudden turn to praise at the end, which quite honestly, if I just rolled through all those things of like, okay, God, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to confess the fact that this all kind of sucks, and then I'm going to ask for help in some areas that I know only you could be to be. Like, you can see the progression. He's gone to the right place. He's confessed what is inside of him. He has gotten to a place where he can now be like looking at who he's turned to and looking at the confession. He can now ask for the help from the person that he's the only one that can do what he can do. And then there's the sudden turn to praise, this ability to potentially reconnect, to reset, to renew trust and confidence in God, and be able to turn praise toward him. I think there's something to that. I think there's something to that model. I think there's something to what we see in that. So I'm going to read this to you again. So, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Light on my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death, lest my enemy say I have prevailed over him. Let my foes rejoice because I am shaken. But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. Now, as you read those, were you able to kind of see where there was a turn to God, a confession and ask for help, and then this sudden turn to praise? I think that there's something to learn from that in how we lament, how chaos, brokenness, suffering, pain, vulnerability, and hurt, how those things allow us to know who to turn to God, what to do once we get there, confess to him, and then what's next, ask for help. Ask for what you need. Ask for what it, like, after all that confession, let's ask some really bold questions. Let's ask for what we need. And potentially you're asking for what you need, whether is it something that you really need or not, but if that's what you're asking, you also have to trust that God is going to give you direction that that's exactly what you need. And then this choose to trust, but really comes in this form of ending in this sudden turn to praise. So I want to challenge you to do something this week or the next time that you need to lament. Now, lament doesn't have to always be like this horrifically huge thing. It can be. But I think anytime that you recognize chaos or brokenness or suffering or pain or vulnerability or hurt, anytime that you recognize those, I think it gives you this evaluation time where you need to go, what do I do with that? Okay, so I was going to talk about whining. So I think I made a huge mistake. When I was telling the story of Elijah, I called him a whiner. And I think that was a lack of perspective on my part. I think in reaching and looking for this, I realized that he said he turned to God, he confessed. And I think that we actually need to learn from some of that wisdom where maybe in the past we've looked at it as whining to God, but it's really just confessional. It's being confessional to the God that you need to turn to because he's the only one that can do and be who he is going to do, who he's going to be and what he can do. So I think I got a little bit wrong with Elijah. I think I got the story right, but I think I got my perspective wrong because that perspective came from maybe a weird place inside of me who had not thought through this as much as he should have thought through it. So when you find chaos, brokenness, suffering, pain, vulnerability, and hurt, what's your next step going to be? I think many times venting to people that you can trust, that's not always a bad thing. Now you got to be careful that it doesn't turn toxic. But I also think that realizing and recognizing that, oh my gosh, those things exist and that really sucks and I don't really like this. I think with people that you trust that's fine. I think what you want to be careful is to realize that those people can't always solve that. They can't be always who you need to be. And the reason is because we need to turn those things to God who can only do and be who he is. Like what we need, he can be that. And he's the only one that can be God. He's the only one that can do that. He is the great creator. And so if we need God to do something new inside of us, that is the one that we need to turn to. So I want to ask you to do something. Next time you scan or think or realize I've got chaos, brokenness, vulnerability, pain, hurt, shame, guilt, those things, can you turn to God and just make it evident, God, we need to talk. Like, again, I think some of the best prayers are the prayers that you would never pray in front of somebody else because it makes you nervous with what you're about to say. I think it honors God to bring the real stuff to him. Turn to God. Sorry, my dog distracted me. I need to lament about that dog sometimes. But to turn to God, to confess. You've got an example here. Will you forget me forever? God, what are you doing? How long will you hide your face from me? I don't feel seen. How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? God, I am sad. God, I am depressed. God, I don't know what's going on. God, there's something that I can't figure out. How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? God, I feel powerless. So turn to God, confess, ask for help. And he asked it boldly. Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Like, ask for what you were sensing needs to happen in your life. I think that, again, there's muscle rep. I think there's skill to what we bring to God in prayer. Again, that does not revolve around perfection, but revolves around us getting those reps and getting better at bringing it to him. And then to choose to trust and to praise. And quite honestly, I think this is going to be the hardest one for a lot of us, to turn and go, okay, now I'm going to praise you. I'm going to choose to reconnect, or to want to reconnect, and to be renewed, and to have confidence and trust in you. Like, and in that, God, I'm going to praise you. And I think it's very interesting that they kind of use the term that many laments end on a sudden turn to praise. Sudden being, it doesn't seem like it should be there, but if you look at the way it goes, we are turning to who we need to turn to, confessing to him what we need to confess. Then we're asking for help to the one that the only true help that can come from chaos and vulnerability and pain and shame and guilt. And then this sudden turn to praise him. So as you think about this, and as you think about this lament, and all of this has come out of Psalm 13, I really hope that this week you can kind of think of what are things in me that I need to turn to God in lament, that I need to cry out to him about chaos or brokenness or suffering or pain, vulnerability, and hurt, that I need to turn to him about any invisible hurt that has happened in my life. And basically, I'm not trying to be cheesy or stupid, but basically say, ouch, that hurt, and turn it to the person that we need to turn it to. A person that wants to help us not only connect with him in that, but he wants to walk with us in that, and who only can be who he can be. He can only be God. And so I want to encourage you to really think about this week as we think about these different prayers. Think about last week about praise. Think about this week about a prayer of lament. About, have you evaluated places in your life where you need to cry out to him? Again, not tear cry, but to basically make it emphatically known that, God, here's something that needs to be discussed. Here is where we enter into a dialogue. Here's where we enter into communication. I'm bringing this to you. I'm confessing. I'm then asking. And then I want this to end in me trusting in a renewed confidence and in the ability to praise you. And so as we do this is not easy. This is hard to practically live out sometimes. Many times we don't do this because we don't take the time, or we don't want to, or we don't know what we're doing. But I believe that God wants to hear these things. And again, I think an evaluation is, if you're scared to pray it and to cry out to him in a way that if you were around other people you wouldn't, you're probably getting it right. And so as we look at today, I'm interested in looking at the chat. Be as transparent and open as you feel led to, but also just sit there and watch if you need to, and kind of learn and experience with what other people are sharing. I'm excited about the gathering next week. We're going to be back at the Big Red Barn. We're going to be having buttered biscuit for dinner. And just to kind of let you know, the reason that we charge for that is just so the church doesn't have to incur the total cost of us being able to eat together. And so we try to keep the cost to a place where we just cover the cost, and we're not looking to make money on this. And so just wanted you to know the heart behind it. And so it's going to be $10 for adults for butter biscuit and $5 for kids. And we never want you to not stay because of that. But if you can give that, or if you can give anything, it just helps to go toward the total cost. So anyway, November 21st at 5 o'clock at the Big Red Barn. I'm super excited to hang out with you guys. And so excited about the chat today. Have an incredible week, and we will see you next week. Okay, bye. See ya.
You say just come to you, all who are weary, and you'll give me rest. sleep.